Okay, let's get into this. We're going to step into, well, one of the most unexpected cultural skirmishes of the last year.
Truly unexpected.
And it all centered on an advertisement for denim. A piece of advertising that was so visually crisp, so simple in its premise, and yet it rapidly turned into this massive cultural firestorm because people claimed it carried a, quote, hidden message so dark that the whole campaign just spiraled into outrage.
It is genuinely astonishing when you break it down. You're looking at a campaign that's built around a celebrity and a playful slogan.
Right.
And yet within days, the conversation moved completely away from fashion and into extremely sensitive territory. It's a textbook example of how a creative, let's say, miscalculation can ignite a much wider social debate.
Exactly. So our mission today for this deep dive is to get past that initial shock, past the celebrity noise, and really determine what exactly triggered this reaction. We need to understand the underlying meaning people assigned to the content, and importantly, why they felt that meaning was so dangerous.
And we've been pulling together all the various narratives. We've got the campaign specifics, the precise nature of the critique, which is, very specific and rooted in a kind of structural analysis.
Okay.
And then the public responses from both Sydney Sweeney and the brand itself. And what we found in the articles really shows a perfect storm of creative intent meeting cultural hypersensitivity.
So let's start where the controversy started. The setup and the slogan.
The initial wordplay.
Right. The core concept was built around this playful campaign centered on a simple, catchy phrase. Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Now, on its face, if you're looking at it from just a pure fashion perspective, it's designed to convey confidence, quality denim, that sort of thing.
But that's immediately where the trouble begins, because that line is, by design, not just about fashion.
Trouble.
It relies entirely on a linguistic trick, right? A quick and unavoidable pun. The immediate jump the advertiser expects you to make is from genes, the clothing to genes, as in inherited traits. The brand wanted that secondary interpretation for its cleverness.
And the sources confirm that cleverness immediately opened the door for a much, much broader interpretation than just good quality trousers. It's an intentional ambiguity.
That's precisely it. I mean, if the message doesn't rely on wordplay, the meaning is fixed.
Right.
The moment you rely on wordplay, you introduce ambiguity, and that ambiguity grants the audience, a license to interpret. And critics did not stop at clever. They went straight to controversial.
I have to admit, when I first read the articles about this, the claims seemed outlandish.
Yeah.
How does a simple celebrity denim ad suddenly jump to being associated with the controversial topic of eugenics? It feels like an enormous and maybe even an unfair leap by the critics.
And that's a fair initial reaction. It really is. And it's why we need to pause here and just, define the terms neutrally for you, the listener. When critics claim an ad hints at eugenics, what they're referring to is the idea that the campaign might be promoting or celebrating the selection of desirable inherited characteristics. In other words, suggesting that certain physical traits are inherently better or more valuable. To attach that idea to a commercial advertisement, it carries immense gravity.
So the goal of the deep dive now is to show that this wasn't just critics, grasping at straws.
Exactly.
But that the ad structurally provided the materials necessary for that really serious interpretation.
Absolutely. What the sources reveal is a kind of formula, a specific layering of details that went far beyond the basic genes versus genes pun. Let's look at the pieces of evidence that critics actually cited to connect those dots.
Okay, let's dissect the creative choices that turned so toxic.
So first, we have to establish the context around the star, Sydney Sweeney. The articles pointed out that she had already sort of established a conversational territory around inherited traits in prior public discussions.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, specifically mentioning things like hair color, personality, and eye color. So the concept of genes was already associated with her personal brand before this ad even ran.
So she had already primed the audience to think about her physical and personal makeup.
That makes the pun much heavier.
It does. But the crucial moment, the piece that really cemented the controversial interpretation for many, was the concluding line of the ad. After all the shots of confidence and movement, the line is delivered very quietly. My jeans are blue.
My jeans are blue. Now, in the context of fashion, that just describes the color of the clothing. Simple.
Right.
But if we're in that genes territory, it becomes a statement about inherited physical characteristics.
Exactly. And the creative team paired this line with a really strong visual element. Critics pointed out that the declaration, "My jeans are blue," was specifically framed alongside Sweeney's own iconic physical traits, blonde hair and blue eyes.
Ah, I see.
They argued that by choosing a celebrity with those highly recognizable, often idealized traits, and then having her specifically proclaim the color blue in the context of a genetic pun, well, the campaign became a deliberate and very tone-deaf statement.
I see the structural argument now. It's the synthesis of all these elements.
Yes. You have the association with inherited traits she's already talked about. You have the genes pun, the specific declaration, my genes are blue, and then the visual confirmation of blue eyes. For a lot of people, that combination is no longer a joke. It's a cultural commentary.
And the article suggests that for a large segment of the audience, the campaign was sending the wrong message. It was dangerously merging fashion confidence with these very specific references to inherited physical characteristics.
And that's why the sources describe it as a hidden message. It wasn't overt, but it was embedded deep within the visual and linguistic rhetoric.
Yeah.
It's powerful how context can just overwhelm intent here. The campaign may have only intended to be clever,
Right.
but it layered so much meaning that it became impossible for a critical audience to see it as just a simple ad.
And that leads directly to the explosion of the backlash. With the word eugenics suddenly attached to a denim ad, the central figures had to respond. So let's look at Sydney Sweeney's defense when the storm hit, because it really paints a picture of a celebrity caught completely off guard.
She stated she was genuinely shocked by the ferocity of the reaction. The core of her defense, as detailed in the readings, was one of total practicality and innocence. She insisted she simply did the ad because she loves jeans.
Right.
And she emphasized her detachment from the storm brewing online, noting she was working long hours on set and barely checked her phone while this whole thing was unfolding.
The narrative she put forward was a very clean separation. I am the face, not the creative director.
A total disconnect.
She implied a total disconnect between the complicated creative execution and her own awareness of the, potentially loaded subtext. She was selling pants, not promoting a social philosophy.
And what about the brand's counterclaim? Did they try to defend the layering of the subtext, or did they retreat?
Oh, they absolutely retreated, but strategically.
Right.
The brand's response was a full insistence upon purity of intent. They stated clearly the campaign was always purely about denim confidence and nothing more.
Okay, so a full denial.
A full denial. They tried to frame the entire controversy as just an unfortunate misunderstanding of a simple fashion slogan. They focused entirely on the stated goal, ignoring the implied meaning.
It's a very safe, almost boilerplate defense, isn't it?
Yeah.
Deny the implication and focus on the uncontroversial surface intention.
It is.
But if we look at the bigger picture, the article suggests that this reaction wasn't just about the brand failing to control its message. It was about hitting a cultural tripwire.
And what's fascinating here is that the sources agreed the public reaction became the real story.
Right.
Regardless of the brand's intent, the wordplay clearly touched a deeper cultural nerve. It highlighted how sensitive society is right now to messages, even subtle ones, regarding inherent value tied to physical characteristics. The sources confirmed that this debate wasn't really about the celebrity or the brand. It was about a broader societal anxiety being projected onto the ad.
But to give a full picture of the debate, we have to address the opposing viewpoint also present in the source material. Not everyone bought the outrage. In fact, a large contingent was openly dismissive of the critics.
And that's vital context. The counterargument consistently mentioned in the readings was that the outrage was entirely exaggerated and fueled by assumptions.
Okay.
For this group, the critics were engaging in an intentional bad faith misreading, turning what was an innocent, albeit maybe slightly corny, attempt at a celebrity pun into a political statement where none was genuinely intended.
So they're projecting.
They argued the critics projected their own anxieties onto an otherwise innocuous commercial.
So we have two perfectly valid positions fighting for dominance here.
Mm-hmm.
You got the brand and the star claiming simple intent and the critics claiming dangerous subtext. This brings us back to the core unresolved question posed by the source material. After all the responses, the denials, the defenses, where does the truth lie? Was this a tone-deaf creative choice, or was it a controversy just waiting to happen?
And this is where we offer the synthesis for you, the learner. The narratives we found suggest that the story becomes more complicated the deeper we go, because both of those conflicting positions are, in their own way, structurally sound.
Okay, so on one side we have the artist and the brand's narrative,
Yeah.
which is the simple, stated intent, We made a playful pun about loving our product. We were selling denim confidence. It was a fashion ad, end of story.
And then on the other side, you have the audience's narrative, which is the undeniable interpretation. The pun was loaded.
Right.
The inclusion of inherited traits, combined with the specific visual cues, blonde hair, blue eyes, the line, "My jeans are blue," it all activated a deep-seated cultural anxiety about messages tied to genetics and inherent value. The context surrounding the subject matter completely overwhelmed the creative intent.
And this complexity means you can believe the brand was sincerely only aiming for a pun, and simultaneously acknowledge that, given the specific layers of detail they chose to include, the public's interpretation of a hidden message was not only possible, but perhaps even inevitable.
It raises an incredibly important question about modern marketing, doesn't it?
It does.
When you decide to employ a celebrity whose personal background and physical traits are highly publicized, and you simultaneously rely on sophisticated wordplay to be clever, you are knowingly creating a situation that depends on multiple layers of reading.
It's that moment of ambiguity that seals the deal, right?
Exactly.
If the ad's success relies on the audience catching the double meaning of genes, then you are implicitly inviting interpretation about those inherited traits.
Exactly. You are surrendering control of the message's final meaning the moment you introduce that necessary ambiguity. You can't ask the audience to think about genetics without acknowledging the powerful cultural weight those conversations carry.
So the campaign was just too smart for its own good.
I think so. It layered a pun on top of profound personal and societal context, and that led directly to a massive cultural misfire.
This whole journey, from a basic denim pun to a headline controversy about cultural sensitivity and inherited traits, is genuinely eye-opening.
It is.
It shows that even the most, mundane commercial efforts can unintentionally trigger these massive discussions about the underlying societal issues we are all grappling with.
So when an advertisement relies on wordplay to be clever, does the creator always surrender control of the message's final meaning? Especially in a world that's so sensitive to hidden societal messages. That is the thought I really want to leave you with. When you craft a message that requires unpacking, you risk allowing the audience to pack their own anxieties and historical grievances right into it.
An excellent lesson on the high cost of creative cleverness. Something to mull over the next time you see an endorsement that's just a little too knowing. Thanks for diving deep with us today.